With the new NBA season right around the corner and teams starting to gear up for training camp, we've got a pretty good idea of what all 30 teams will look like, which means we can also get a good feel for what each team's biggest strengths and weaknesses are. Obviously, some teams are much more well-balanced and well-equipped to succeed in different areas than others, but no team is perfect, and all of them have issues that they'll need to address at some point, which brings us to today's video. Today, we'll be going through all 30 NBA teams, and we'll be discussing the biggest issue that they will be dealing with going into the new season. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but it also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. Going in alphabetical order, we'll start with the Atlanta Hawks, and their biggest issue going into the new season is that they have no backup point guard. The Hawks have had one of the strongest off seasons in the entire league, making a big trade to acquire Kristaps Porzingis, and also acquiring Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Luke Kennard in free agency to bolster their backcourt, but they're both wing players by nature. Vit Krejci can technically play point guard, but at 6'8", he's more of a secondary playmaker who's on the floor to shoot threes more so than initiate the offense, so while Trae Young has a lot more weapons around him to play with, he'll still have heavy usage in the process. Next is the Boston Celtics, and their biggest issue going into the new season is their entire front court. The Celtics have fully embraced a rebuild year in the absence of Jason Tatum while they wait for him to recover from his torn Achilles, and what that means is that they basically cleared house in the front court and have one of the weakest rotations in the league there. Players like Chris Boucher and Neemias Queta are going to be starting at the 4 and 5, Luka Garza is their backup center, and Xavier Tillman and Jordan Walsh will round out the rotation in those spots, which makes for a group lacking in experience and proven production. Next is the Brooklyn Nets, and their biggest issue going into the new season is that they have no veteran leadership. I saw this pointed out on Twitter the other day, but the Nets currently have a ridiculous 13 players on their roster with fewer than 3 seasons of NBA experience. The oldest player on their team is Haywood Highsmith, who is 28 years old and was a long-time career journeyman playing most of his career in the G League, before finally carving out a role in the Miami Heat's bench these last 2 seasons. There isn't a single player above the age of 30 on their team, no old heads behind the scenes teaching these young guys how to be professional athletes, and I will always be someone that believes in the importance of things like that, which spells trouble for a group with this much inexperience. Next is the Charlotte Hornets, and their biggest issue going into the new season is their center rotation. The Hornets have had a pretty strong summer all things considered, making some big free agency signings along with some notable trades, but now the center position has no good solutions after trading away Mark Williams. Mason Plumlee, Moussa Diabate, and second-round pick Ryan Kalkbrenner are their centers right now, with the first 2 being career backups thriving in minimal spurts off the bench at best, and Kalkbrenner not even guaranteed to be in the rotation as a second-rounder. Next is the Chicago Bulls, and their biggest issue going into the new season is that they don't have a real number 1 option on offense. The Bulls are trying to slowly rebuild without fully blowing things up, knowing that they have strong pieces at a few key positions, but ultimately the goal of a rebuild is to find the piece that can lead the team into a new era of play as a legit star talent, and unfortunately they don't have that. Kobe White emerged as a 20-point scorer last season, but realistically he should be a second or third option on a team trying to win. Josh Giddey's versatility as a playmaker at his size makes him a tremendous talent at point guard, but he's way too flawed as a scorer to even hit that top tier, and the rest of this group is made up of role players that would have thrived alongside a true number 1. Next is the Cleveland Cavaliers, and their biggest issue going into the new season is their backcourt depth. Of course, the Cavaliers were the 1 seed in the East last season, so they're still one of the stronger squads around, but if I must nitpick, it's that they're relying way too much on Lonzo Ball to be their second unit backcourt supplementation, and he has not proven that he could stay healthy for an extended period of time in years. Next is the Dallas Mavericks, and their biggest issue is that they don't have any good playmakers until Kyrie Irving returns from injury. The Mavericks' backcourt is made up of a lot of really good role players and off-ball specialists, but D'Angelo Russell is the only other capable lead ball handler they've got. Unfortunately for them, the year is not 2019, and D'Angelo Russell has not made a positive impact on winning a team in years, and he's fresh off of the worst season of his entire 10-year career on both sides of the ball, so it's going to be a bit of a grind until Kyrie Irving comes back healthy to them. Next is the Denver Nuggets, and their biggest issue right now is that they also don't have a backup point guard at the moment. The Nuggets are another team that had a pretty strong offseason that should set themselves up for another deep playoff run with depth at every position. That is, except for point guard. Jamal Murray will once again be leading the backcourt as the primary ball handler, and the team is definitely lucky to have Nikola Jokic, who can do just about everything a point guard can do as a center. But the second unit doesn't really have many ball handlers, as all of the role players mostly thrive off-ball as floor spacers, cutters, and defenders. Next is the Detroit Pistons, and their biggest issue going into the new season is their floor spacing. This was a Pistons issue 2 years ago too, and last year they did well addressing exactly that by bringing in Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr., who both love to shoot a lot of threes, and Beasley in particular knocked them down at a truly elite clip for the volume last season. Both of those players are gone now though, and while the team did bring in Duncan Robinson and Karis LeVert in their place, Robinson is less efficient than Beasley was as a volume shooter, and while LeVert is a better overall scoring threat off the dribble, he's much streakier from three than Tim Hardaway Jr. was, and that is saying something. Next is the Golden State Warriors, and their biggest issue right now is the locker room tension that's being built up. By this, I'm of course referring to the standoff going on between Jonathan Kuminga and the organization, where this unresolved situation has held the team's entire offseason hostage. Neither side seem to be willing to budge, nor do either side even seem to want to come together anymore, and yet in the end, in all likelihood, Kuminga will probably end up returning to the Warriors at least for one more season, and that's going to be awkward to have play out for a team trying to contend for a championship. Next is the Houston Rockets, and their biggest issue right now is their three-point shooting. The addition of Kevin Durant helps tremendously in this regard, but almost the entire rest of the rotation is made up of subpar shooters from three. Fred VanVleet, Amen Thompson, Alperen Sengun, Tari Eason, Jabari Smith Jr., and Josh Okogie all shot below league average from deep last season. Clint Capella and Steven Adams are non-factors from three. Aaron Holiday probably won't be playing enough minutes for his three-point prowess to save them. Reed Shepherd may be wildly inconsistent in his first taste of real minutes, and that leaves Dorian Finney-Smith as the only other proven reliable shooter that they have. Next is the Indiana Pacers, and their biggest issue right now is also their center rotation. The Hornets aren't the only team that downgraded massively at center this summer, as the Pacers unfortunately saw the Bucks steal Miles Turner away from them in free agency, and to replace him, the Pacers signed Jay Huff. Huff has one single regular season of playing time in the NBA under his belt, and while he did prove to be a serviceable floor-spacing big man in Memphis last year, he's still a backup at best. Then the other centers on this roster include Isaiah Jackson, Tony Bradley, and James Wiseman, making for a very underwhelming group. Next is the Los Angeles Clippers, and their biggest issue going into the new season is all of this Kawhi Leonard drama. The Clippers on paper have one of the strongest teams they've ever put together, but now they're dominating headlines for all of the wrong reasons. With Kawhi Leonard and the organization potentially getting exposed for fraudulent under-the-table payments via fake sponsorship deals, many are calling for severe punishment, and that's going to be hanging over their head for a while as things get sorted out. Next is the Los Angeles Lakers, and their biggest issue going into the new year is their perimeter defense. The Lakers have an incredibly talented starting backcourt of Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, but neither of them are above-average defenders, and backup Gabe Vincent can be a liability on that end of the floor at times as well. The team did sign Marcus Smart to address this problem, but Smart has played in just 54 total games over the last 2 seasons, so he needs to prove that he can stay healthy before being anointed as the answer to this. Next is the Memphis Grizzlies, and their biggest issue going into the new season is that Ja Morant is trending in the wrong direction. When the Grizzlies finished as the 2 seed in the Western Conference back-to-back years in 2022 and 2023, Morant was playing at a near superstar level, ranking amongst the league leaders in scoring and assists, pushing the pace, and wowing with his explosiveness in the open floor. Since then, though, Morant's production has taken a noticeable step backwards in each of the last 2 seasons, and this Grizzlies team will only go as far as Morant takes them. Next is the Miami Heat, and their biggest issue for the new year is their lack of creativity on offense. Quite simply, the Miami Heat have been lacking in playmakers for years now, and without Jimmy Butler, this problem only gets worse. They have consistently ranked as one of the league's worst offenses amongst the teams that have been making the playoffs, and it's because they just don't have enough guys that can be trusted to make plays on the ball when it really comes down to it, besides Tyler Hero and Norman Powell, and it just got announced that Tyler Hero got a procedure done that might force him to miss some time. Next is the Milwaukee Bucks, and their biggest issue going into the new season is all of the Giannis Antetokounmpo rumors hanging over their head. The Bucks are in a spot where they know the clock is ticking to get back into title contention because Giannis is steadily growing more and more impatient, and with Damian Lillard now gone, this is a team with an even lower chance of actually re-emerging at the top of the conference. If they start the season slowly, these rumors will only grow louder, and by the trade deadline, they're going to be facing a very difficult decision. Next is the Minnesota Timberwolves, and their biggest issue going into the new season is that Mike Conley is still their starting point guard. All due respect to Mike Conley, he's had an amazing NBA career, but the unfortunate truth is that he's no longer a good enough player to be a team's starter as someone about to turn 38 years old. The Wolves, however, didn't address the point guard position at all this summer, so Conley will still be at the helm, and best case scenario for this team is that 2024 lottery pick Rob Dillingham can have a breakout season to maybe take the reins. Next is the New Orleans Pelicans, and their biggest issue right now is their lack of chemistry. The Pelicans are just a mess of a team filled with disgruntled stars, injuries across the board, and a wacky clashes of play styles throughout their lineup. Last season, the addition of DeJounte Murray was disastrous, and now he's been vocal about how unhappy he's been as a Pelican. There's always been a weird energy around Zion Williamson in his time on the team, and with so many new faces, old and young, they don't really have any experience playing together as a unit. Next is the New York Knicks, and their biggest issue going into the new season is Karl Anthony Towns' defense. I know this is beating a dead horse at this point, but the Knicks are legitimately one of the best teams in the East, coming off of a strong offseason where they did a lot of the right things, so no new issues have popped up. Only the one consistent problem remains. Last year, Towns' presence unlocked the Knicks' offense and took them to elite status on that end of the floor, but the defense took a noticeable step backward, and the team allowed over 2 points per 100 possessions more with Towns on the court compared to when he was on the bench. Next is the Oklahoma City Thunder, and their biggest issue going into the new season is the potential of a championship hangover. The Thunder dominated last year from start to finish, and they're returning mostly the same team that won it all, so there's nothing major they've got to worry about right now, as they float along on Cloud 9. But with them already having accomplished the ultimate goal of a championship, hangover is very real as a possibility. Some groups successfully keep that hunger going after winning one, while others get complacent knowing they've reached the mountaintop, so we'll have to wait and see which one this team is. Next is the Orlando Magic, and their biggest issue right now is their lack of playmaking. The Magic in back-to-back seasons have had the worst ranked offense amongst the 16 teams to make the playoffs, and while their struggles shooting the ball from three play a big part in that, their lack of a top-tier playmaking point guard or playmaker in general doesn't help much either. Shooters need to be set up for quality looks, and without anyone with natural passing instincts running the floor, the lives of those shooters and the lives of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner to carry the load have been made difficult. Jalen Suggs is more of a defense-first guy who has been pretty inefficient on the offensive end, and Tyus Jones is more of a make the extra pass kind of point guard who shoots the ball well, so while the team's shooting should improve based on the moves they've made like Tyus Jones and Desmond Bane, I still don't see the looks this team getting improved all by that much without a point guard to help out. Next is the Philadelphia 76ers, and their biggest issue right now is Joel Embiid's knee. Quite simply, the health of Joel Embiid is the sole factor that determines whether the Sixers can keep up in the Eastern Conference. They have a pretty stacked backcourt right now, plus Quentin Grimes is likely to re-sign, and Paul George can't possibly be worse than he was last season, but this team needs Joel Embiid on the floor, even if he's not producing at the MVP level we're used to seeing him produce at, in order to compete. Next is the Portland Trail Blazers, and their biggest issue right now is three-point shooting. The Blazers are making promising strides as a young rebuilding team, and now with Damian Lillard back in the building, everything feels like a storybook ending, but Lillard won't be on the court for them this year to save their dreadful shooting numbers. Last year, the Blazers ranked in the bottom 5 of the league in three-point shooting, and the only player in their rotation still that hit threes at an above-average clip was Chumani Kamara, which is saying something. Next is the Sacramento Kings, and their biggest issue right now is their defense. Inside and out, the Kings are going to struggle getting stops, with Zach LaVine being a liability defending the perimeter, Dennis Schroeder struggling in a similar way, Domantas Sabonis historically being a below-average rim protector, and a cast that hasn't made any notable improvements to lead anyone to believe that they will improve upon the 22nd ranked defense that they had a year ago. Next is the San Antonio Spurs, and their biggest issue right now is their lack of spacing. The Spurs backcourt is currently made up of De'Aaron Fox, Stephon Castle, and Dylan Harper, all of which are below-average three-point shooters, with Castle hitting just 28% of his threes, Fox hitting just 31%, and Harper shooting just 33% from the college three-point line. Harrison Barnes is the only legitimately good shooter in their lineup, with the next best shooters being Julian Champagnie and Devin Vassell, who were much closer to the league average mark, so they're pretty much just hoping that some of these guys can improve internally to open things up for Victor Wembanyama. Next is the Toronto Raptors, and their biggest issue for the new season is the inefficiency of their shot creators. The Raptors have put together a team that they hope can get them back to the playoffs, with Brandon Ingram being the big acquisition from the trade deadline last year returning to the court. There's a lot of talent, versatility, and length in this lineup, but there isn't a whole lot of reliable shot creation. Their best players are Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, RJ Barrett, and Emmanuel Quickley, and only Quickley even hits the league average mark in true shooting percentage, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. That is a worrying sign, which could suffocate the floor for them. Next is the Utah Jazz, and their biggest issue right now is that they have too many mouths to feed. The problem with rebuilding for an extended period of time is what the Jazz are experiencing right now. They've accumulated way too many young guys that all need touches to aid in their development, but there's only so much usage each of them can get. Lauri Markkanen is still the star of this team, Ace Bailey comes in as a score-first wing, Keontae George's entire game is based around being a volume scorer, Cody Williams needs touches in order for him to develop after a bad rookie season, Bryce Sensabaugh is proving to be a pretty talented scoring threat as well, and that's barely even half of the young core involved. I just don't have time to rattle off everybody. And finally, last up is the Washington Wizards, and their biggest issue is that they still need to figure out where to play Alex Sarr. Sarr has a similar problem that Anthony Davis had as a prospect, only the issue is that Sarr is half of the talent that Davis was. Like Davis, Alex Sarr has the physical tools of a center, but he personally prefers to play as a power forward. He's not strong enough to hold his own inside yet, and he struggles with the physicality of the offensive end as well, which is why a large chunk of his shot attempts are from outside. But with year 2 coming in, the team needs to figure out which spot works best to maximize him long term and focus on his development there. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below which issues you're worried about the most. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.